Hey everybody, welcome to Spill the Novelty, where three girlies shout into the void about our latest book hot takes and obsessions. I'm Abby,
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
and this week we're spilling the tea about Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. So if you're a longtime Sanderson fan, or if you're curious about what all this hype really is about, here's the tea.
All right. So the tone of this book is kind of funny? Question mark. it's not serious at all, that's for sure. And that's because we have a really funny narrator who's actually like also part of the story, which I think is like, what is that? Like, I don't know what that's called. I'm not gonna this isn't a literary class, but
Don't test us.
his name
Close enough.
his name is Hoyd, and he's been cursed by the sorceress, who's like basically the big bad of the story. His curse makes him like interesting, to say the least. It's hard to say without explaining. I don't know, without like examples, but he's very random and goofy, and he talks to us as readers a lot in this narration. So I have a little example on page 38.
Ooh,
So he
live
says
reading.
All
an
right.
example. Yeah, I bookmarked it because I wanted to explain how this book reads. So it says, Lem was not a poor man. Now you might say to me, Hoyd, this entire story has shown me the opposite. Lem's family is always scrimping to survive. And I would say, please stop interrupting. And that's just how the book goes. Like he talks to you a lot and he'll just be like, stop,
I literally
I'll explain
highlighted
that
the
later.
same thing, Kaylee. I was like, highlight.
Personally, I thought this narration was interesting, don't get me wrong, and it reminded me a lot of Lemony Snicket, which we were texting in our group chat about, and someone else said as well, because his books kind of do the same thing, kind of like talking to the reader, having a conversation with the reader, breaking the fifth wall or fourth wall, whatever it's called, and I got used to the narration as the book went on, but I found myself skipping over it a lot, which is the same thing I did when I read like Series of Unfortunate Events when I was like 9. Because like it gets overdone. Like you don't really care about the narrator as much. Like you just want to hear the story. You don't want all the extra details and conversations, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, so I found it very intriguing and very fun, especially at the start before we really figure out who our narrator is, because sometimes books do this where they'll start using like an I, me, my pronoun, and you're like, whoa, who are we talking about? And so I was curious to kind of unravel that mystery from like the first time that we got like an I, me, my. And it's not like a mystery for very long, because bless be him, he just stumbles into the frame in like his underwear at one point and he's like, that was me. It's like literally record scratch, that was me, you're wondering how I got here kind of a moment. Which like, and I agree, like he is very funny and I enjoyed the vibes, but the sense of humor for me, it's very witty, but a lot of the jokes were very, like, I don't know how to say this without offending people, so I'm sorry, but it was very Gen X kind of humor where it's like XD random, put spaghetti in a blender and then exfoliate your skin with it sort of thing. And it was very, it is funny, but it's not the same kind of funny necessarily that like my brain is super tickled by. It was very much felt like if the classic bard character from like a D&D campaign like wrote a book and like is trying to like tell jokes and keep the audience engaged the whole time.
You know what it reminds me of now that you said all of that? It reminds me of iCarly.
Yes. Oh my God, like, yes.
A random dancing.
Not Tress being like, a Dan Schneider production.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Bad timing.
Oh,
but that's what it reminds me of.
It is very funny because I think like, and I think that's a great example too, because like something like an iCarly, you're just putting on for fun, right? You're here for a fun time. And I think like a common theme throughout this book was that, and something we kind of texted about was like, we enjoyed it. It's very well written. I can see the Brandon Sanderson hype. I have read that this one's different from some of his other works. So if you're a big fan, don't come for us because like this is the only one that I've read. But
Mm-hmm.
my brain definitely felt like it was going on autopilot a lot. I think especially with like the tone and narration, because it is funny, but it's almost so overdone with all the humor that like I'm not going to pick up on everything, and that's all right. That's fine. It's not really what I was in the mood for. It's not really my vibe. But it's still a fun way to kind of set up this story.
Yeah.
So he was a fun character, but
He's a
you have to be
fun
in the mood.
character. I liked that he had like a very strong voice. Like
Yes.
exactly how Hoyd is thinking and talking, which I think a lot of writers struggle with. Like you said, Abby, the writing is great in this book. Like it was
Oh yeah.
like stylistically, I see why people
Wonderful.
eat Sanderson up. Like the writing is great.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked, Hoyd as a concept where you have this presumably extremely powerful sorcerer that can do all this crazy stuff, and he's cursed to be just an embarrassing fool. Like, and that's why his curse is that, because it's so embarrassing
fool
for him
yeah.
to like not be able to communicate and sound intelligent. So I liked the concept. What I think my issue was with the narration is that the funniness was so at the forefront here that it took some of the seriousness out of the story for me. And I was very confident at every point that everything was going to be fine because this is all told like a big joke. And so I wasn't as invested or maybe worried as I would have been if Hoyd, in his right mind, is telling us the story, if there could have been a little bit more seeds planted as he's talking to us about what Hoyd knows about the dangers that our main character Tress doesn't know. I think it would have been nice to see that lever pulled a little bit more, where we're actually getting some information on how serious things are from the sorcerer Hoyd, who knows a lot of things. And also less of like this philosophical, at the start of every single chapter, 3 to 5 pages on human nature. And like some of that is really good. Like some of it I highlighted and I enjoyed, but like it was so heavy handed with kind of this like erudite, I've got things figured out and I'm telling you about like what human development looks like, and then Tress is going to go through that same thing in the chapter sort of thing. I skipped a lot of the first pages of chapters because it was just like, can I get to some plot kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it reminded me a lot of children's books.
Yes.
Like, we talked about that a little bit in our group chat too. It was just like the way it was written and how ridiculous it was. Like the actual story, when you got to the plot, was so ridiculous. Like the spores, and I can't remember other examples, but like I would just read stuff and I'd be like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and it's very on par with this book. Like, and it wasn't just Hoyd, it was just like things that would happen, and I don't know. It was all ridiculous, but it was good. It was well written, like you guys are saying. Like I have no qualms about the writing. Like the writing was very it was good writing.
Well, and I think too, Maddie, the point that you're making about like the beginning of the chapters and having this like very like erudite, deep kind of philosophical thing going on, I think that kind of like self-aware narrator narration works really well for like some of the humor, right? So because like he's making jokes about, of course, like different fantasy tropes about the pirates, about so like that sort of self-awareness is very key to the humor throughout the book. But when it then turns into this like deep philosophical thing, and I'm already trying to keep track of like what's actually going on in this story, which is so kind of drawn out over this big quest, like I don't need that. We can save the self-awareness for these more like funny little witty quips that only someone who's aware of fantasy as a genre can do.
Exactly.
But like I don't need to get too deep personally, not for this story at least. But
yeah. I think my favorite Hoydism, just to give him some credit, is it's like kind of in the beginning of the book, but it's the first time that Tress goes up to like, she gets to like steer the ship. It doesn't matter why. Tress just gets to do whatever she wants essentially throughout the book, which we can talk about in a second. But she goes up to like steer the ship, and it basically is like, more or less, it says like, something stirred within her, and like she realized like how fun it was. And there's a line that is it's like, it's a shame like how many people in their lives never actually find their true calling just because they don't happen to fall into a circumstance where they're on a ship and they get to try to steer it for the first time. And I was like, damn. Okay, he ate with that. That's
hits
so
hard.
true.
Yeah.
He had some bars. He had some bars for sure.
I guess I just didn't take any of it seriously, though. Like, yeah, kind of like we're all saying. Like, even when he had those deep moments, I just didn't take it seriously. Like, I was just like,
you were like,
it's just
get
whatever.
this guy off the stage. He's drunk.
Boo. Yeah. No, he was fine, but
it's fine.
I just kind of read it passively. So
yeah. Pulling us into Tress, our beloved main character, Shirley, that we all loved. Shirley.
Obsessed.
She's our main character. She is an 18-year-old girl because, of course, she is. This is a fantasy book. What did you expect? She's obsessed with books because, of course, she is. This is a fantasy book. What did you expect? And her quirk, she has really unruly hair. It's so frizzy, and she normally keeps it in a braid. But for most of this book, she doesn't. So, you know, take that on her side.
She's so quirky.
She is quirky. So I'm poking fun at her. I did like Tress. I thought she was really nice. I liked kind of the deviation from the normal fantasy female main character being like hard and cold and tough and aggressive, and that we got to see a female main character that was kind and was empathetic and used that as a strength throughout the book to build relationships and to understand people better, and to help people in general. And I also really liked that although she is incredibly naturally talented at everything, seemingly everything that she tries, I liked that there was space given for her to have to work to be good at things and work to understand things, and that it wasn't just instant. It just was she had a talent for these things and she was clever enough to figure them out. But she failed several times throughout the book at things and had to go back to the drawing board and kind of reconfigure what she thought was true. And there's a lot of things that she just has like the wrong impression of in the world that she has to unlearn. And so I think we see a lot of really good character development from her throughout the book, including in the beginning where she's like just timid and like too flexible with everyone, and like, if it doesn't mind, like if you don't mind, if it doesn't matter to you, can I do this? And by the end of the book she's like, bro, go.
So relatable.
Yeah,
it is relatable, and she's blushing all the time.
Yeah,
whenever she talks to people.
Common girls texting experience! ! After everything. It's totally fine. Like, you can let me know. Like,
smiley
would
face,
it be okay? Is this okay? Like, oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely grew on me for sure. Like, this is one of the a million times in this podcast I'm going to say that I think this is a great book. It's just not my typical vibe. And that includes her as a character. Like, I do think that all those things are true of her as a character. I just am a basic, and I want that, like, kick-ass female main character lead for a fantasy, at least. Just to maintain my attention. But I do agree that, like, she's very well written. And I do like to see her really get to explore the world. I also do love her whole thing with the cups. I did like that from the get-go. Just like just like a wholesome little thing that makes sense for her character.
A little
like
hobby.
It's a little hobby.
Yeah. It's a little hobby. Everyone needs a little hobby, but she's just not my go-to kind of character.
Same. And honestly, I'm kind of on the other end because it annoyed me when she was like all super moral, and like that's to be expected in books. See, I'm the opposite of Maddie because I feel like every book we read is like when I think of like Feyre from ACOTAR, for example, I'm like, she's constantly moral even when it like is actually damaging to others around her. And that's, I don't know. I felt like Tress, like for example, when she was all like, I can't leave the ship because I actually care about these people and I want to see this through. And it's like, girl, just leave the ship. Like,
okay, yeah, that was annoying. I was with
I'm like, you've known these people for 5 minutes.
They're fine.
And yeah, that stuff kind of annoyed me, and I also didn't really think she was like that funny or quirky or anything.
She
Like
wasn't
she was just
funny.
no,
Not
she was just
funny, no.
she was just kind. Like that's her only characteristic. She's kind.
mean,
I did like that.
I do think she's resourceful. I think
give
that.
her a
Yeah,
little clever
yeah.
at least. She's a little clever.
She is a little. I was just
least
about
a
to say I
little.
liked that she was intelligent.
Yeah.
But it also made me wonder, like, where did this girl become so clever and intelligent? Because, like, she literally grew up on a rock. They don't have many resources there. So the books that she's reading and everything, like, those cannot be, like, I don't know, they can't be that helpful of books. Like, they're probably just, like, children's books or.
Yeah, I don't think
know.
she was, like, book smart. I think she was street smart. I feel like she had a natural ability to look at things almost from, like, an engineering perspective and kind of pull them apart and understand what was going on. And I don't think that, like, the engineers that I know in my life, they just were fucking born with that brain. And, like, I don't have that brain, but, like, they think of everything that way, you know? And
I guess
so
that's like the nature over nurture argument, though, because I
Yeah.
think that they grew up in a certain environment that enabled them to be that way, but that's getting too deep for this. But yeah, I don't.
And our next
Okay,
episode
philosophy.
will be nature
Okay,
versus
Hoyd.
nurture. Okay, Hoyd.
Okay, Hoyd. We're getting into it.
Yeah, we are.
But Tress was fine. Tress was fine. She was fine. I have no complaints about her, really. She was a fine character.
Minus all the complaints
everything about
that
this
you
book
had,
was
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, except for those things.
Yeah, except for those things.
It's fine.
So the thing about Tress is she, in the start of our book, the main plot, I guess, of the book is that she falls in love with this boy named Charlie. And he's like, what is his dad is a duke? Is that right? Is that the right title? Okay.
Yes.
I was like, he's the king's son. No, he's not. He's he's adjacent. So he's the duke's son on her little island. And she's just like a window washer. So you got your classic, class discrepancy thing. They can't get married, blah, 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 blah. Charlie gets sent off. He gets captured by the sorceress. And Tress is like the only one that cares about him, basically. And so she's like, simply, I will go rescue him. And so the entire plot of the book is based off of this foundation that Tress is trying to go rescue Charlie. So she's like more or less hijacking a ship to go to the Midnight Sea, which is where this big scary sorceress lives. And to get to the Midnight Sea, you have to go through the Crimson Sea, and each of these seas are made up of spores, and they all do different things, and they're all crazy. So,
and the spores explode when they get wet.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, an important detail.
Yeah, the spores explode when they get wet. And the oceans are all made of spores. So oceans are not wet in this universe, really.
Is water wet?
Is water wet?
Which makes you wonder how the ships move forward. But
the spores, them. They poosh.
How nice of the spores.
And then on our next episode, we're going to get into the science of spores.
Yeah, hater energy detected. So. Understood. Yeah, so that's basically the premise of the book. For me, Charlie was cute. We got him for like a chapter or two. I thought they were fine. And then I did not really care at all about her like main premise to go rescue him. I literally was not invested in this quest at all until, spoiler warning, we found out that Huck was Charlie. Huck, you may be thinking, oh, this must be another person on the ship. He's a talking rat that she just kind of runs into.
Iconic.
Yeah. And isn't that freaked out about? Which I would be really freaked out about. But
honestly, okay, for me, if I found a talking rat, I think I would be pretty Tress coded. I would just be like, all right, well, that's what we're fucking doing. Sure.
I was like, is this gonna be like, are these spores like making her go nuts or something? Like, I thought that maybe she was like losing it or something,
No, it's
and
a
it wasn't
children's
actually
book, Abby.
there. And then, yeah. I've been watching too much Dune recently. I'm like, oh, it's the spice. It's just like psychedelics, and she's just like
We're the
gone.
sandworms.
No, it's a talking rat. He's here.
Yeah, no,
he
it's
is
a
very
talking
real.
rat. I don't know. I always just kind of this is a personality flaw of mine. I'm always kind of ready for my dogs to randomly talk one day. Like I just assume that might be able to happen because I'm like, I bet you got some things to say.
They haven't started yet?
I haven't played with enough spores, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the key.
But we find out that this talking rat that is her companion is actually Charlie all along. But he's been cursed by the sorceress. And so then I was like, oh, I'm back invested in Charlie. Because
True.
the flaw in this plot for me is that or I should speak for myself. I got more invested in the characters that we actually talk to for 90% of the book, which is all of the pirates. And then Charlie is kind of this like amorphous concept. And so I didn't care about saving him. And the thing is, that's resolved when you find out that he is one of the characters that we were talking to the whole time. But you don't know that that's resolved until you get all the way to the end. So for 90% of the book, I was not invested in the plot of the book.
Yeah. I was honestly hoping that Charlie was dead and that Tress would just, like, find out that she loves being a pirate and she doesn't actually need a man. That's what I was hoping would happen.
I totally thought that's what was going to I thought that she was just going to, like, go off on her own mission or they'd get there and then like he was there and he has no interest in being saved, like he has his own life, whatever, with the sorceress,
because we kept kind of hinting at that because people around her with the sorceress people around her would be like, why do you care so much about a man, like you should just forget about him. Like I think it was like Anne or Soleil and Fort both said that. They were like, okay, why do you care so much about this guy? You should just forget about him. And so I was like, maybe she will.
But Brandon Sanderson was like, hear me out. Talking rat.
Love prevails.
Talking rat. I do love talking rat. He was like the highlight. So early on in this book, I actually really I did like some of the like Charlie and Tress like initial interactions just because it was cute. It was just like, it's a cute little dynamic.
I love and then that he's boring as fuck. I thought that was funny.
I love that. Yeah, like good for them. That's just, normal everyday. Your normal everyday living on a rock, And so, but once the quest started, I didn't care until we had Talking Rat, which he came in early on, and then Talking Rat was the highlight of most of the quest. I did like, I know we'll talk about side characters in a minute. So I liked some of the characters she meets, but the rest of the quest, I was just like, okay, we're here. We're on a boat.
Yeah, and I almost
I keep saying it, but it was like the whole book was fine. Like the quest was fine. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. It was fine to read.
I almost felt like Tress herself became less interested in the quest to find Charlie because she was so taken by the other side characters and their immediate need. And there's even like a quote that I highlighted that was, it says, but what did Tress have? She wanted to save Charlie, but that wasn't her purpose. That was her goal. And so I liked the calling out that like, that's not all she's living for. But at the same time, I'm like, and yet that's where we're brought back to. Like every time at the end of every chapter, it's like, but she has to save Charlie and she has to do this. And so, I don't know. I was much more interested in essentially everything else that happened. Her learning the spores.
We might as well just talk about side characters now because, like, it seems like we're all, like, hinting at that anyway. So, we can't skip over these side characters we're introduced to. They're all pretty awesome. We have Fort, Anne, Soleil, Sally,
Slay Queen,
Slay, and all of the Dougs. And the Dougs are basically just like all these other characters that Hoyd just kind of skips over. Like he's just like, yeah, that was a Doug. We're just gonna call them Dougs. And that part was really funny, and I actually liked it because I was like, we don't have to keep up with any names. It's just like, oh, that's a Doug, until a Doug dies, and then he's like, okay, he actually had a name, you know, and that was kind of interesting. But anyway, so Fort was my favorite, like.
Of course.
So basically, for anyone who hasn't read the story, Fort is deaf, and he communicates using this like magical board that tells him what other people are saying, and then he like types back a response, and it displays on the board. And I think Maddie mentioned this before we started that episode, but it's actually just a laptop. It's not like a magical board. It's not this cool new invention. It's
I
just
thought it was
a
like
laptop.
a floating. Yeah, I don't know why I had like this completely different.
I did too.
View of what it was.
I was a little sad when someone else had like a board equivalent, and he was like, it was a laptop, but I don't know what a laptop is, or something like witty like that. And I was like, oh no. Oh, okay.
Oh. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Fort was cool. He was also secretly like really kind. Like even though he did things through trades, like it was really because he wanted to be a kind dude. Like he was like, hey, Tress, you forgot to eat, or you didn't come get your dinner today, so I brought it to your door. And like he would do cute little things like that, even though he was like, but I expect something in return, even though he really didn't.
Yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah, I think Fort is the highlight of the side characters for sure. I always wanted more Fort. I liked that he was really kind, but he still has this like thing where he has to get a good deal. So I liked that he was dual-sided that way, and it wasn't just like he's nice and he'll do anything for anybody. Like no, he has to be sure that he's getting a good deal, that he's making a good investment. The Dougs, this is a very clever thing because it's not actually as clever as it seems, in my opinion. But it's presented as very clever, and it feels very funny, and it feels like an inside joke throughout the whole book. Every time the term is used, you feel like you're having an inside joke with Hoyd. Really, he could have just referred to them as sailors, right? Like there is a term for just general workers on a ship. They're sailors.
True.
The sailor went to do this. The sailor went to do that. He had another sister on the boat that was also a sailor or whatever, or even pirates. Like, it doesn't matter. The term, the grouping is not actually as clever as it seems, but the fact that it is the name Doug and, like, it's a proper noun, I have to give Sanderson credit for that because he took, like, an already existing concept and kind of made it feel like a buy-in for the reader, and that's the stuff that Hoyd does as a joke that I think is really, really good and special.
Good.
Not the spaghetti.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think it's, again, kind of knowing, Kaylee, you told me that like some of the influences were from like Princess Bride and just like these very kind of like comedic approaches to like fantasy and stuff like that, or reminding us of like a Lemony Snicket, right? Like there's something too about just being like, yeah, that guy Doug. Like there's just this funny kind of like flippant thing. It's an inside joke, but it's also still like giving credit to those characters too, like mentioning them at all. Like you wouldn't have to. The crew could just be very small. We don't know. So I don't know. It just, yeah, like you said, giving it that proper noun brings more attention to it too. And so it's just, yeah, very self-aware again of like, yeah, Doug, like a Doug, whatever. But yeah, I think that worked well.
Yeah.
For other, yeah, I echo a lot of what y'all said about the other side characters. I also realized there too that I may have misunderstood some of the stuff about like, so I was thinking that Anne is the one that like uses the cannon at the end, right?
Yeah.
Or is that?
She has eye problems. Yeah.
Yeah. She's the one that's bad at the cannons, and she's like thirsty for firing the cannons, but they're like, don't let Anne.
But she really likes to. But she really likes to like fire the cannons stuff, right? Okay. Because I missed the part about her eyes, but I did think it was funny that we had a character that's like obsessed with cannons and like just wants to like blow shit up. Like I think that's very fitting if we're on like a pirate ship, just having someone who's just that one character who's just here to blow shit up. So I thought that was kind of like a fun personality to have. But
yeah, I think for me, Fort makes the side characters appear better written than I think they are as a whole. I think Anne and Soleil, they just blended right into the background for me. I couldn't keep them straight in my head for like a long time. They just were like, okay, the female side character that we like. I'm like, okay, it's one of them. Like, I don't know. Like, and now I know, Soleil is like the driver of the ship, and she's like kind of the one who keeps the captain in check, but she really didn't stand out to me for any other reason than that. Anne didn't stand out to me besides being kind of just a bit until she had the vision thing, which I thought was clever. What I liked about that is Tress figures out that her vision is bad, and it's one of the things that she negotiates for when she goes to the dragon, which I know is like a crazy sounding sentence, anyone who hasn't read this book, but just bear with us. She asked for Anne to get glasses, basically. And so I liked that it was telling us that Tress is paying closer attention to people, and not just writing them off, because everyone else on the crew wrote Anne off as just being a bad shot, and like it's not deeper than that. But Tress was like, no, there's gotta be some other reason to this. Oh, she literally is blind. The bitch cannot see. She needs glasses. So I thought that was cute, but that's not a credit to Anne's character. That's a credit to Tress for me. So Anne and Soleil, I couldn't have cared less about them, and for that reason, I think one of them should have died.
When you said for that reason, I was thinking of Shark Tank, and you were going to be like, for that reason, I'm out.
For that reason, I'm out.
Even better. For that reason, one of them should have died.
Yeah. Like, Soleil got shot in the thigh, and I was like, bro, kill her. Make me feel something.
Because this is like a children's book. They can't kill people.
You're like, a little higher.
Yeah, but in the postscript,
I literally
Googled, I wanted to make an adult fairy tale. You didn't! No one died.
Listen, I Googled, is Tress of the Emerald Sea a children's book? I Googled that like 30 pages in, and something came up from Reddit, and it was like, should I let my 5-year-old listen to the Tress of the Emerald Sea audiobook?
Yeah, sure.
And people were like, sure. Yeah. And then as I was reading this, I was like, I don't think a 5-year-old should read this. Like, this is kind of some of this is a little too intense for a 5-year-old, but maybe like a 7-year-old.
Intense will just go right over their head.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we were watching Ren and Stimpy as a kid.
It's also like one of those things where like you can let your kid listen to it. I don't know if they're gonna like.
They ain't gonna get it.
I think the humor is where you have like more adult things sprinkled in, so they probably won't like get it. But
I think you could like the visuals I will say, of it.
Yeah.
The audiobook was. I like the narrator for the audiobook. He fit very well. It was very much like this fairy tale kind of. It was very good for that voice. But anywho, that's interesting. I'm gonna look it up on Reddit because I want to see. I want to see the replies. I want to see the tea. So
yeah, it's definitely not an adult fairy tale in my opinion. It's
not. I could have read this when I was in like 3rd grade, and I would
and I would have thought I was so smart. I would have been like, Hoyd is the funniest person known to man.
Yeah,
I probably would have. Yeah,
Hoyd would have been my entire personality for sure, first years, and I would have been like, have you read Brandon Sanderson? Oh, you haven't. Okay, well,
intro to philosophy with Hoyd.
Yeah, literally.
You just don't get it.
Like, so true. Some humans don't find what they need to do. True.
True.
Me in 3rd grade. That's so true.
That's so true. So we have these characters. We have this quest that like, we have different things happen, but it just kind of passes. And then at the end, I feel like things just, in true fantasy form, they do just everything kicks up, or a bit faster at least. So we're traveling to the Midnight Sea. And of course, this is very treacherous. You've never seen anyone come back from it, yada, yada. So basically, Tress and her crew have to travel the sea, but they kind of just go on through it. And they end up in the sorcerer's castle. Like, it's a whole thing where you think it's going to be this big dramatic, big dramatic trip, and it's just not. So they end up in the sorcerer's castle, and they have to bargain for Charlie's life. So, again, we return to Charlie, who we are initially on this quest for. And a lot of things happen. Well, we find out that Charlie is indeed Huck. So the big rat reveal. The crow song ends up rescuing them. And Hoyt is a sorcerer. We get so much tea in the end.
A lot of tea.
Yeah. So I like this whole sequence. The sorceress herself. I was like, once again, she's kind of like, okay, we're here.
She's fine.
She is up in the tower.
I don't think. Yeah, she's up in the tower.
You gotta give her that.
You gotta give her that. Yeah. So the thing that was the most fun for me was the Charlie Huck reveal. The Hoyt is a sorcerer reveal. The big reveals, that was way more entertaining to me than actually like crossing the Midnight Sea and coming face to face with the sorceress.
And better yet, that Hoyt is a sorcerer who got turned into this, other guy, this, wild dude. All just a dude. Bet. It was just a bet between him and the sorceresses. Like, it's just another ridiculous element where I was like, oh, of course it is. Yeah, of course it was a bet.
Yeah.
Right.
But hear me out, okay? I would have liked the sorceress more if she weren't evil and everyone just like expected her to be, like initially where she was just like, sure, you can take Charlie, just leave the 2 cups. I think that would have been even funnier than her actually like being evil and having this whole plot, because that would have just fit the whole tone of the book. You would have been like, okay, like
you can go.
Right. Yeah. Like, because it was just very rushed at the end, like everything happening so fast, and then all these reveals, and it was just like, it was all like a little bit too much, I think, for the buildup that this book created for that ending. Like, I think it would have been better if it was just like this like simple thing, like just leave the 2 cups, and go. Yeah.
No, you're so right for that, because it was too much and it was not enough all at once. Like, we have all this build up, and I also expected the sorceress to not be evil, just because I was like, surely there's no way that this is like the case. Like, this is going to be another turn the trope on its head sort of thing.
It's going to be a bit. Yeah.
It's going to be a bit. And I think that would have been way more funny. And I also feel like Hoyt would have ate that up, or like, even if the sorceress was actually really nice, but it was like her actual familiar, the talking jellyfish, is evil and is the one like placing curses on people or something, like something just absurd to add another layer to it, because I can't stand in books when we spend 90% of the damn book trying to get somewhere and then that scene is over in like 5 pages. Like, please. But I also, here's my issue with the sorceress, because she is actually evil and cruel or whatever. On the ship, the captain of the ship is Captain Crow, and she also is evil and cruel. And there's so much work done in the narration to express how evil and cruel she is, and to show, and like we have one really good scene where they're like, okay, she's infected with spores and vines. She can summon vines at will. Okay, just roll with me here, people that haven't read the book. And they're like, people aren't actually scared of you, they're scared of your vines. And she's like, really? And so she like takes down our 4 like main characters on the ship instantly with ease without using the vines at all. And it establishes her as an actually dangerous character. And in the next scene, it doesn't matter fucking at all, because she's taken care of. So again, issues with pacing for me. But we don't get that with the sorceress, because there's like one line where it's like, oh yeah, and her face turned completely cold and you can see she didn't care at all. And I'm like, okay, like she literally is doing nothing right now. In my head, we're like in this room and she just keeps running from the window to like the tablet, just like back and forth, doing nothing. And like she's being outsmarted by a talking rat and an 18-year-old girl that are having a conversation out loud about how to outsmart her. And I'm like, this feels so unserious, but I think this is supposed to be serious, and it's so not.
That's kind of getting at what I was saying earlier about how, like, when Hoyd, the narrator, actually says serious things, like, I didn't care. And that's kind of when this book, because it was so ridiculous, when serious things happened, it was still ridiculous to me. Like, I didn't care.
Or, like, I love that you bring up Crow, because in my head, she was much more, quote, scary or intimidating than the sorceress ever was. And it's like, you know, the buildup there, even in, like, so even if we said, you know, we got a path across the midnight, so you actually get to meet the sorceress, and she wasn't scary after all. I feel like even the buildup, though, like, there was so much buildup and discussion about how Crow, like Crow is big, Crow scary, Crow bad, and the sorceress, I was like, she's only, like, what, scary in name, the sorceress, like, what are we really afraid of here? Just the unknown? Like, that's literally fine, I guess, but I don't know. Just wasn't that big of a deal.
No, that would have been a perfect angle to play off of, because there's a point Tress starts playing with spores, which are seen as, like, the most dangerous thing in the universe or whatever, and they are dangerous, but, you know, she's a natural talent. So less dangerous for her. She simply just, like, talks to them. And there's, like, a paragraph where Hoyd starts philosophizing about how a lot of the times things aren't as dangerous as they seem, but people always interpret the unknown as, like, a dangerous and scary thing. And so they miss out on a lot of stuff. And that would have been a perfect angle to play for the sorceress, because she also took the most dangerous spores and simply, like, I don't know, like, tried to figure them out and interact with them. So she's like, it just would have all made a lot more sense. Yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
And
I think that would have been a good.
I don't know. This is also making me think of, like, realize what a bigger problem was with Tress as a main character is, like, she has this, like, recurring thing brought up in the book all the time about how, like, she's not scared when she should be, and she's like, I am scared, but she's not. And it's the same with the sorceress. She's not really scared of the sorceress even when she should be, and that also takes a Barb out of the seriousness, because we're not like, our main character isn't scared, so we're not scared for her. And also, she tries to sacrifice herself, like, 1,000,000 times because she's so selfless. And so, like, I don't know. It's just, like, there's a certain amount where I didn't even care, like, if Tress was going to die. And I actually think that would have been a more interesting end to the book if, like, she dies and then, you know, Charlie gets untransformed or whatever. And then, like, he goes on to do whatever. Somebody's got to die, bro. Somebody should have died.
Not in a children's book.
Someone
I wish he would have just marketed this as a children's book, because
I would never have read it.
Yeah.
Or, like, even middle grades. Like, I can understand, because I still think the humor and things like that are above a children's book for sure. But the stakes are not giving adult fantasy. So we gotta go.
No, not at all.
I do want to give a shout out, though, to the dragon. We didn't make a full section for him, but in the Crimson
shout out,
the raid boss is the dragon. And he was cool. I actually enjoyed that scene. She goes to the dragon, and he's also kind of funny. And he just, like, and he has, like, a big beard, and he's like, pitch your cases, and basically it's Crow and Tress trying to pitch why they would be the better slave to the dragon, so that they themselves don't get donated to the dragon. And I don't know, that was a funny scene. It was an underwhelming scene, but it made up for it in kind of just the general enjoyment of the scene for me, and watching Tress be clever. So shout out to the dragon. I did appreciate him as the raid boss for that area, and I thought that was done well. And I liked that he just was like, realistically, I should take both of you, but I'm just going to use your technological advancements as an excuse to say, like, that's why I let you go. And then the sorceress tells us, like, all of your shit has already been invented. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. He was basically saying, like, Tress is going to do more for the world than Crow would, so.
Yeah, except she wasn't, because all of her stuff had already been invented. So he just liked her, and that was the only reason he let her go. That was my interpretation, I should say.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
It was endearing. It was charming. Just shout out to the dragon. Shout out to the dragon.
Shout out.
All right. It is time for everyone's favorite part of the pod. It is our hot takes and our pour overs. So I will start. My pour over is I actually do want to know more about Hoyd. I really liked him as a concept and a character. And I wouldn't have told you this. I wouldn't have felt this way unless I had oh my God, I can't speak. Read the post note thing that Brandon Sanderson wrote where he said postscript, yeah, where he said that more Hoyd books may come, but they wouldn't be as unserious and funny and ridiculous as this one. So I'm willing to read more about Hoyd if that is the case and if that stays true, because I wouldn't read more of like this narrative style. I thought it was fun for like a one-off. It's okay, but like I am interested in I really like the spores and the ethers or whatever, and kind of that concept, the magic. I thought I was interested in the system. So I would read more. I'd give it another shot to see if his, I guess, more normal writing style is a little bit easier for me to take as a reader. So that's my pour over. And then for my hot take, saving the plot points of the sorceress and the dragon for the final, like, 20% of the book is literally criminal pacing. And I think Sanderson should be held accountable for what he put me through to get to the end, which was interesting and engaging, and then to give me what he gave. Brother, please throw me a bone here. The pacing was awful in this book.
And I feel like you see this a lot in fantasy. So this is more of a general qualm with fantasy that I have too, is like pacing. It's like, why can't, which that's something I like about, like, I always go back to saying Priority, but because Priority is like, Priority and A Day of Fallen Night are like perfectly paced books, because the end is like the whole book. It's like what we get in the end of most fantasy books is like the whole book of Priority and A Day of Fallen Night. There's action and there's conflict. And that's something that Bridge Kingdom also did really well, because it's like, and we had talked about that in our episode, it's like there's conflict throughout. It's not just like saving the big bads and the conflict to the very end of the book. And it's just an issue I have with like all fantasy. It's like I don't get why we do that.
Yeah. If we had the dragon, imagine it was like Emerald Sea. I don't even remember what the sea was before the Crimson Sea, but Emerald Sea, Crimson Sea, dragon. She takes over the ship. Then they go through like a sea that's just like cool and there's character development or whatever. And then we get to the Midnight Sea, like just something, or even if there was like a mini raid boss in the Middle Sea that was just more interesting. Because I didn't even really care about the rains in the Crimson Sea. Like I got tired of reading that scene over and over again. I literally skipped chapters because I was like, does anyone die? No, a Doug. Okay. Sorry, Doug. You know?
Yeah, sorry, Doug.
Agreed. Break it up a little bit. That would have been better pacing for sure.
Or at least throw some more like pirate ship interactions in there. Like, you tell me there's no other pirate sheeps out here that we're beefing with? Nothing?
Yeah.
Anyways. That's my take.
I'm gonna be lame. I probably should have just gone last, but I don't have a hot take or pour over for this book. It's just like Kaylee's I got nothing. I keep saying it was fine. It was fine. The book was fine. Once I put it down every time, I was like, I don't want to pick this back up. I have no interest and I don't care what happens. And that's kind of how I felt. But while I was reading it, and we all talked about this, it was like while I was reading it, I enjoyed it. It was fine. But when I put it back down, I just didn't care. And so when I finally put this back down and tried to come up with a hot take and pour over, I was like, nope, got nothing.
Yep. I don't have a hot take. Not nothing. I got nothing. Pour over, the only thing that I do have pour over, once again, a big fan of Huck. So now knowing what I know, I would go back and maybe reread some of the sections to pick up on like little dialogue of him basically trying to stop Huck or Charlie, trying to stop Tress from going on this journey. Like, I think that would be fun to like revisit like in my head, I'm thinking of the different dialogue and stuff, of like little reveals or hints that it would be Charlie. So like I am thinking about that. I don't have a hot take though.
Okay, so I'm curious because I usually when I have a problem with a book, I like to try to figure out how to solve the issue because I'm like, how would you fix this? Like if I have beef with like a narrative point or like a plot point or something, how would I fix this? And I don't know that I have a solution for the Charlie Huck problem. So I'm curious what y'all think because I loved the twist that Charlie was Huck because I didn't see it coming at all. But the twist being so late in the book and there being no strong, obvious, like Sarah J. Maas type hints that Charlie was Huck meant that I entirely have Huck and Charlie in two different buckets, so I don't care about Charlie. And I don't know how you retain the good twist while making us still care about Charlie throughout the book. Because I don't think the answer is an earlier Charlie Huck reveal.
No, more Charlie, maybe more Charlie moments, like maybe some memories, some reflections, like give me some little more flashbacks to like make me care about him a little bit more. The rest of it though, like I think is just, yeah, kind of by nature of like this book being like a fairy tale kind of where it almost it doesn't have that same like gravity or like stakes, but maybe some flashbacks.
Wait. I would say if Hoyd knew that it was
that would be
that good. who Huck really was, like, and he gave little hints, but he didn't say it was Charlie, but he was like
someone very important.
I know something you don't. Yeah, or like
you have everything you need. Is that what that was referring to?
I think that, yeah, that's what my conclusion was. You have everything you need. Like you have Charlie here.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's true. I guess he did give us like kind of a hint.
Hold on, I think I've solved it. I've figured it out. Don't worry, guys. I saved it. I don't know. Something Abby said triggered me. What if Huck starts bringing her little cups or notes from Charlie? Like he's still sending her stuff. And that kind of keeps Charlie alive throughout the book, but really he's just because he's a little rat and he can sneak into like the captain's quarters and get a cup, and the captain is like, bro, what the fuck, like how'd you get that cup? And she's like, Charlie sent it to me. And she's like, no, that's my cup from my third drawer, you know, something like that would be like the last cup
like
reveal,
even
like,
I think it would only work like once or twice, but I think that would be cute and even if it's just like once, like maybe because the only logistical thing would be like how did he they would have to dock somewhere or something for him to be able to reasonably say he got a cup.
Well, they do dock once and he literally gets off the ship.
There you go. Well, there you go. That would be a good one.
And then the second cup is like a captain's cup or something. And that's where you kind of start being like, why is Huck bringing me cups? But Tress just like dismisses it because she's got other shit to worry about or whatever. But it's a little hint. It's a little something. But it keeps Charlie alive, you know?
Yeah. That's a cute idea.
That's a cute idea. I could see that.
Something. There has to be a solution. Because I love the Charlie Huck reveal and I don't want that to be spoiled. But something's got to give for Charlie because I just did not care about that man.
T.
Yeah. Okay. So last but not least, we will talk about our ratings and favorite parts before we go. So my personal rating is a 3.4 out of 5. Objectively though, I would probably give this a 4 because it was so well written. It just like my personal rating, it was not for me, but it was a fine book. So that's why I gave it a 3.4. And then my favorite part was when Tress tricked the captain into becoming a servant to the dragon. We talked about that. I thought it was super clever and I didn't see it coming. And it made me really impressed with Tress. So
yeah,
like that part.
And I like too that it wasn't just an easy, she suggested it and the dragon was like, true sister, I take it. Like she kind of made points and the dragon was like, that's a -1 for you. What's your rebuttal?
Yeah.
Like I liked that.
Like you're kind of losing here, sister.
Right. I liked that she wasn't just like perfect at it from the start. Like she was like, frick, she's good at leading people, and he was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was funny.
That was a fun scene for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine, personal rating, 3.5 out of 5. Solid 4 or more though, just for writing. So basically what you said, Kaylee. Just not my thing, but fun nonetheless. It was not, at no point was I like, this sucks. Like it was just, I was peaceful. I was there for the ride, there for the ride. My favorite part, once again, the Huck Charlie reveal, and just Huck. Like even when he first came up, I was like, yeah, talking rat, I'm here for it. I liked his little mannerisms. I liked their little discussions. I liked when we thought that he was betraying her. The drama with this little talking rat. So he was a fun little aspect of this book.
Yeah. My favorite part, it's just a big retweet to what you said, Abby. I just loved the Huck is Charlie. It made me like Charlie so much more. It made me love Huck more because I was like, oh, the torture that this poor little rat experienced watching his gworl go through all these things. And so I just love that whole thing. It was a good twist. Love being surprised in a book. For my rating, I gave it a 4 of 5 because I really like Tress. I didn't have as much beef with her as y'all did, so it didn't bug me as much. I think the pacing is just, I don't know, like you said, Kaylee, it's just a problem that I find with almost every book, so it didn't dock it as much as maybe it could have for me. But the writing is just so good, and I did genuinely have a good time like while I was reading it, but once I set it down, blipped out of my brain. So I don't know what to do with a book like that, because it was just good, but I don't know, I just give it a 4 just so I could stop thinking about what to rate it, because it was just confusing for me.
Yeah,
it was an experience when you've done and you don't have to do again.
I will say, knowing that Sanderson's other writing is not like this made me willing to read his stuff, because I was like, okay, I see the writing is really good and I see he's really clever, so I'm willing to buy into it since it's not all like this. But when I was like halfway through the book and I was like, this cannot be what people are talking about when they say like they're so absorbed in like Sanderson's writing. Like, if so, I am so out of touch, because like I could not read like a 10-page series of this. Or 10
I would get the being absorbed in this, but it's specifically like associating him with this like action-packed fantasy writer. Like that's what told me. I was like, okay, this is clearly an outlier or like different style than what he does. Yeah, so I'd be definitely willing to check his other stuff out.
I do totally get, like, for the right audience though, I understand why this book is like a 10 out of 5 for people. Like, for the people that want this, like, it is like a perfect book for that audience. I think it would make a great video game. Personally, I don't think the pacing is right for a book. I think you need more raid bosses for a video game, but I think it would be really cute as a video game.
It would be cute.
I hope.
Retweet.
Yeah, Brandon, if you're watching, reach out to me. I can help you figure out some like video game angles to take this, to kind of like write the video game script for it, and like how to design some bosses and like ship sailing mechanics. So, and add some cozy game elements, like you have to grow your spores. I think that could be really fun. So just hit me up. I have ideas. Thanks, guys.
Any ideas?
Yeah.
For sure you do. Totally.
If there's one thing about me, is that I got ideas.
That's true.
All right. If everyone has said their piece, that's all the tea that we have on Tress of the Emerald Sea. Next time, we're going to be spilling the tea on A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. This is the same author who did the Bridge Kingdom books that we read very early on in the pod. So we're excited to revisit her and see if we feel better or worse about this book than we did about those books. You can also stay up to date with the latest tea on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube by following us at Spill the Novel Tea on all of the things. And while you're there, please let us know, did this book live up to the hype for you? Are you a Sandersonite, or was this your first toe dip, and how did that make you feel? Are you going to engage more in the Cosmere? We need to know. Are you on the same page as us, or are you feeling differently? Did we miss the mark? Did we miss the penis jokes that Hoyd put in the book? Please correct us.
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes, we did. Okay, we will see you next time.